Have you ever imagined a man who has taken on the world, who has survived pressure, criticism, and impossible challenges suddenly breaking down because of one woman? I never expected my future wife to make me cry. Not from pain, not from heartbreak, but from something far deeper. She touched a part of me I didn't even know was still alive. I used to believe emotions slow you down. I used to think vulnerability was a weakness. But one moment with her, one sentence, one look, it shattered everything I thought I understood about strength. She didn't change my world with grand gestures. She changed it with truth, with gentleness, with seeing the real person behind all the noise. And in that moment, I realized something I never expected. Sometimes the greatest breakthrough in your life is a discovery, a victory, or an achievement. It's a person today. I'm going to share the moment that transformed me, the moment that made me cry in a way I never predicted, and the moment that taught me what real love actually feels like. If you're ready, let's begin. The unexpected impact of emotional vulnerability begins the moment a person who has always relied on logic, discipline, and relentless forward motion suddenly discovers that the heart operates on a completely different set of principles. For years, he believed that emotions were something to manage, not embrace. They were data points, elements to categorize, understand, or set aside when they interfered with progress. But then someone entered his life who didn't just challenge the boundaries of his mind. She reached directly into the quiet spaces he never allowed anyone to see. Her presence didn't demand anything. It simply existed with a kind of warmth that disarmed him. In the beginning, he tried to maintain control, to stay the unshaken force he had always been. But her authenticity made that impossible. It wasn't dramatic or overwhelming. It was gentle and unmistakable. A simple smile, a sincere concern, a moment where she looked at him as if she understood everything he wasn't saying. These tiny reflections of humanity created a shift he didn't anticipate. What surprised him most was how natural it felt. Vulnerability didn't weaken him. It clarified him. It reminded him that beneath all the responsibility and ambition and pressure, he was still human, capable of feeling deeply, of being moved, of letting someone in. When she stood beside him, listening without judgment, he realized that strength wasn't in suppressing emotion, but in allowing it to exist without fear. The moment he felt tears rise unexpectedly wasn't a loss of control. It was a release of years of guarded silence. She didn't just open his heart. She made him understand that emotional vulnerability could be a form of power, a reminder that even the strongest need someone who sees them not for what they've built, but for who they truly are. A moment that shattered the idea of being unbreakable often arrives without warning, disguised as something ordinary, until it hits with a force no logic can predict. For someone who has spent years believing that resilience means never cracking, never slowing down, and never letting emotions interfere with purpose, the realization comes like a quiet earthquake. It might be a sentence spoken softly, a gesture filled with unexpected sincerity, or a look that seems to read every silent struggle he carries. When she did something so genuine, so purely rooted in care, it bypassed all the defenses he had built over a lifetime. It wasn't grand or dramatic. It was honest. Honest in a way that slices through the walls he constructed around his heart. In that instant, he felt something unfamiliar, an emotional weight, lifting instead of pressing down. The moment was powerful because it revealed a side of him he didn't know still existed, a side capable of feeling touched, moved, even overwhelmed by someone's compassion. He had spent years convincing himself that being unbreakable meant being untouched by emotion, but she exposed the flaw in that belief effortlessly, not by challenging his strength, but by recognizing the hidden fatigue behind it. Her understanding wasn't forced or exaggerated. It was natural, and that sincerity struck deeper than any hardship he had ever faced. The tears that surfaced weren't from weakness, but from recognition. A recognition that someone finally saw the human beneath the layers of ambition, pressure, and expectation. In that moment, the idea of being unbreakable shattered, not because he broke, but because he realized he no longer needed to pretend. True strength wasn't in holding everything in. It was in allowing someone to share even the parts he thought no one would ever witness. Love as a catalyst for personal transformation begins quietly, often before a person even realizes change is happening. For someone who has lived with a mindset built on strategy, innovation, and constant forward motion, love enters like an unexpected variable, one that can't be calculated or predicted, but still reshapes everything. It doesn't demand transformation, it simply inspires it. Her presence becomes a mirror that reflects not just who he is, but who he could be. She doesn't push him toward change with pressure or expectation. Instead, her belief in him, her gentleness, and her ability to see the human beneath the achievements create an internal shift powerful enough to alter his course. Love makes him reconsider the values he once prioritized. Efficiency over emotion, productivity over peace, ambition over connection. Suddenly he finds himself wanting to slow down, to listen more deeply, to understand rather than respond. He becomes more aware of his own flaws, not with self-criticism, but with a genuine desire to grow. Her support makes vulnerability feel safe, and in that safety, he evolves into a person who not only dreams big, but feels deeply. Her influence software permanent. He becomes more patient, more reflective, and more willing to acknowledge the emotions he used to avoid. What makes this transformation profound is that it doesn't strip him of his drive or ambition. It strengthens them. Love gives him clarity, reminding him that success is meaningful, but sharing it with someone who understands him is what gives it purpose. It encourages him to balance the intensity of his ambitions with the warmth of connection through her. He learns that personal growth isn't just about conquering challenges, but embracing the people who help him grow beyond who he imagined himself to be. The power of belief from someone who sees beyond the surface is unlike anything else. It comes from a person who doesn't look at achievements, titles, or the reputation the world constantly talks about, but instead focuses on the human being underneath all of it. When she believes in him, it's not because of what he has accomplished, but because of who he is at his core. That kind of belief carries a different weight. It becomes a force that doesn't push him, but lifts him quietly and consistently in ways he never expected anyone could. Her confidence in him feels genuine, without conditions or expectations, and that sincerity begins changing the way he views himself. For the first time, he feels truly understood, not for the outcomes he creates, but for the intentions behind them. She notices the small things he hides from the world, the exhaustion he masks with determination, the doubts he buries under responsibilities, the fears he never speaks about. Instead of being intimidated by these hidden layers, she embraces them. She sees the person behind the image, and that kind of recognition makes him feel seen in a way no success ever has. It encourages him to step into parts of himself he once ignored, the parts that crave connection, reassurance, and humanity. Her belief becomes a quiet reminder that he doesn't have to carry everything alone, that someone is willing to stand beside him, not because of what he can build, but because of what he feels. This belief strengthens him more than praise or applause ever could. It becomes a stabilizing force that keeps him grounded in moments of chaos, a source of calm when pressure intensifies. Knowing someone sees his heart, not just his achievements, makes him braver, more open, and more willing to embrace the emotional sides of life he once overlooked, realizing that happiness can be engineered through connection, not achievement, begins with an uncomfortable truth. Success alone doesn't fill the quiet spaces of life. For someone who has spent years chasing goals, solving problems, and building the impossible, the pursuit of achievement becomes second nature. Every milestone reached feels like a temporary spark, bright but brief, pushing him to aim higher and move faster. Yet somewhere in the midst of all the accomplishments, he starts noticing a strange emptiness. The kind that no innovation, no breakthrough, no global recognition can quiet. It isn't failure. It's the absence of something deeper. And then she enters his life, not to replace ambition, but to show him an entirely different dimension of fulfillment. Her presence becomes a reminder that happiness isn't a formula of success metrics or future projections. It's found in the moments that don't make headlines, the conversations that feel effortless, the laughter that escapes without thought, the silence that feels comfortable instead of isolating. And through her, he begins to understand that the human heart responds more to connection than conquest. She teaches him that the warm certainty of being understood, supported, and cared for can create a kind of joy that no achievement ever has. It's not about slowing down his dreams. It's about realizing that dreams feel more meaningful when they are shared. This realization doesn't diminish his ambition, it reframes it. The drive remains, but now it's complemented by a sense of emotional completeness he never expected to feel. He discovers that happiness isn't a byproduct of success. It's something built through genuine connection, through the presence of someone who brings balance to the intensity of his journey. And as he experiences this shift, he understands that true fulfillment isn't engineered through creation alone, but through the people who make the journey worth living. A promise to protect the person who touched his heart in ways he never predicted begins with the realization that she reached a place inside him he believed was inaccessible. For so long, he operated with a kind of emotional distance, not out of coldness, but out of necessity. His life demanded strength, clarity, and resilience, leaving little space for vulnerability. Yet she walked into his world without trying to change it. And somehow she changed everything. She didn't force her way past his defenses. She simply stood close enough for him to feel safe, lowering them. Her kindness, patience, and sincerity created a connection he never anticipated, and that connection awakened something protective within him, not out of obligation but out of love. As he began to understand how deeply she affected him, he also recognized how precious that connection was. The promise he feels forming inside him isn't dramatic or spoken loudly. It's quiet, steady, and grounded in sincerity. It's the kind of promise a person makes when they realize that someone has offered them a level of emotional truth they've never received before. He wants to protect her not because she is fragile, but because her presence has become something he values beyond anything material. She gave him a sense of peace he didn't know he was missing, and in return, he feels a natural desire to ensure that she never faces the world alone. This promise becomes a defining part of his transformation. It's not about shielding her from life, but about standing with her through it. It's about offering an understanding she offered him. He realizes that protecting her doesn't mean guarding her from challenges. It means holding her heart with the same care she showed his, ensuring that the bond they share remains unbreakable in a world that constantly tests their strength. In the end, this journey wasn't just about unexpected emotions, unexpected love, or unexpected tears. It was about discovering a part of myself I never took the time to understand. I learned that strength isn't measured by how well we hide our feelings, but by how bravely we allow someone to touch the parts of us we never show the world. She taught me that love isn't a distraction from the mission. It becomes the mission. It gives meaning to the chaos, purpose to the struggle, and softness to the places where life has made us hard. Her belief in me, her understanding, and her quiet support reshaped my entire definition of happiness. I never expected my future wife to make me cry, but those tears reminded me of something far more important than success. They reminded me that I'm human, and that connection is the greatest achievement of all. Thank you for listening, for sharing this moment, and for being part of this journey. I hope you carry with you the reminder that love can transform in ways you never anticipate and strengthen you in ways you never imagine. Wherever you are in your life right now, I wish you clarity, courage, and the kind of connection that makes you rise higher than you thought possible. Good luck and thank you.